and welcome to this video.
Initially, this section of the video was going to be focused around my network and some self-hosting projects that I've been working on lately. Like most people that have discovered self-hosting, you can do a lot with it. And one of the key things I'm doing is running Frygate, a software in VR which allows me to analyze the video streams from my outside cameras, which in turn allows me to trigger Home Assistant notifications and deliver that data to my phone without having to rely on any external processing, only the transmission of the notification. Now we're back to working on Frank, our electrocutionee sitting in the chair. Obviously Halloween has been and gone, and the video for this display has actually been uploaded to Facebook as well as TikTok for an early exclusive look. But here I'm just getting the cables ready for all of the servos to make sure everything can actually be controlled. I've gotten the network cable, as shown in a previous video, stripped off the outer sheath and split these up. Now I've got these 1, 2, 3 servo controlling wire groups, which is going to go to one in the hand, and one to lift up the legs. Then I've got another little servo wire bit here. I've done a little bit of maybe waterproofing to try and help with that. Anyway, this is a single wire which will come up and which will connect to the servo here in the chest, as well as the one for the mouth. With everything planned, I begin working on the left-hand servo, cutting off its connector and soldering on my own cables and running them along to the back of the chair, then moving on to the right-hand servo, completing the same tasks there again, making sure that everything is set in place. I move on to the legs. This will be a servo in the middle, which will have an arm going out either side in order to pull each shoe up depending on the servo's position. Finishing up at the chest, where I have the main servo which will help it lean forward and back, as well as control the mouth servo. With my ESP32 flashed with ESP Home, I can move out to the garage and then solder it to another circuit board to make connections a little bit easier. Now that this chip has been programmed and I've got my little cheat sheet here, I can start wiring everything up. But for a slight bit of waterproofing, I've decided I'll put everything in this container. I'll mount it upside down on the chair so that I can unscrew that off and get to the internals if and when needed. But for the most part, everything should be nicely locked away and mildly waterproofed. Using the tools available to me, I mark and cut out this little bit of a flap, hoping that any falling rain won't be able to get into my container and damage any of the electronics in there. With the electronic housing made, I can finalize the routing of my wires and then install that housing, routing all of the wires through the housing so that I can begin soldering them all to the circuit boards that I've put together. That being the ESP32, which is the main brains of this unit, then a DF mini player, which allows me to insert an SD card with audio files on it and trigger it via Home Assistant or any local code on the ESP32, as well as a circuit board for power distribution across the many devices. Okay, that's the base system installed and ready for calibration. Alright, this is going to be the first time where everything is connected. I mean, the servo for the legs isn't being connected yet, but I've wired up all of the servos and we're powered on. And nothing's happened, which is kind of scary. Does that mean it's not working? After spending way too much time diagnosing the wrong things, I found that I'd made a couple simple little mistakes in my code and in the initial setup of the device. There were some default values I needed to invert. But once that was figured out, I was able to go into my calibration page on Home Assistant and begin finding out how much movement I really have. Now that I'm comfortable with the controls I made, I'm able to go in and calibrate each of the servos to make sure that it's not trying to move outside of its actual range. Alright, powering it on. Our first little test here. Once it's connected. It's connected. Nothing's gone wrong.
1.
I can say 1.
1.
Very well. Good work. Anyway, the mouth, let's see. Close. Oh, here we go. Close. Open. Close. Open. Alright. Leaning forward. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, got that. Left hand. It's doing stuff. Right hand. Alright. Leg servo. Hey, we've got life out of it. Alright, I've looked around a little bit and the best thing I've found so far is this carbon fiber rod. And this is what's going to connect to the servo in the middle here in this orientation so that as it rotates, it will lift up and down the legs. Admittedly though, I did end up connecting it with electrical tape and zip ties. I even broke one of the plastic arms on it. But I did eventually get it on there and working, and just as the camera died, I completed the calibration of the legs. I also wrote up a little test script. Okay, I've added a little test script, which should just have him shake a little bit. It's a little bit, yeah. Now I need to do something about his bald head and cover it up. A few videos back you may have seen that I was working on a hood and sewing it up. Well, I lost it, so I've grabbed a t-shirt off the line and put it over Frank's head. Using some little clampy clip things, I'm using it to hold it in place where I'm thinking I'll put the seam in an attempt to utilize some free time on the drive to work and while at work. I've been sewing away to try and make this hood look as best as I can. And as you can see, I didn't secure it together with bobby pins or any usual technique. I instead used these clamps that I have quite a few of, and it seems like they've gotten the job done quite well. It ended up sitting really well, and I think it did a great job at selling exactly what I'm going for, and especially after cutting the hole in the front of the hood to reveal the nose, it definitely fits really well. Alright, with this hood now put on, he's looking kinda creepy. So let's do one last calibration where we see that all the min-max is all being set and we know where our home positions are, and then we can begin chucking in some actual animations. Boop, 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 boop. Done. Now to power him on, and with a security camera that I'd set up the other day specifically for debugging Frank, I'm able to program him from my computer in the house, in comfort. Though it does feel a little weird sitting in my room watching a faceless man shake and convulge in my garage. With programming underway, I needed to head to the store to get supplies to build the headpiece for this electrocution-y. Now that we have those supplies, let's forget about it for a couple of days and move back to the animation of Frank. Progress is being made. To over-dramatize it, I'm also going to be installing this LED strip into his clothes. I'm aiming to go maybe down an arm, down a leg, and be around the chest a bit, and that'll be like the electricity in him arcing out and causing light. Then we're back to debugging, calibration, and figuring out what's going on with this code. Remember that little bag from before? Well, let's work on that headpiece now. The main part is this small metal food bowl, along with these thin leather straps that I need to attach to the sides to hold it on like a bit of a helmet. Of course, there's a center hole for the main bolt sticking through, and then I need to make those holes on the side for the leather straps to fit through. Then I just need to fumble around a little bit with the leather straps and the placing so that I can lock everything in place and make it look like it's actually strapped onto his head and held in tight. I also added some cardboard to fluff out his chest a little bit, and some straps around his waist, his ankles, his elbows, and his chest to make sure that he is really held in there. We're left with what I think is a pretty reasonably well done look. So I've just gotten all the straps on and they're all in place and looking good, and then I remembered the LED strip. So it's just going to be a little extra tricky. And tricky it was maneuvering around those straps I'd put in, but I still managed to end up running the LED strip from the top of his head all the way down to his right foot. With the LED strip in, what's left? Finalizing the programming, the vocals, and I need to add an amp. The built-in amp of the DF Player Mini is loud enough for a quiet room, but not loud enough for this to be outside and for people to hear it over the sound of the servos. Oh, those servo sounds are really loud. Hopefully this amp will easily overpower them without distorting the sound. Pulling out an old 100 watt 12 to 24 volt amp that I had stored away from a previous project, I begin smothering it in hot glue, thinking that this might be a good way to waterproof it. But it's not, so I don't recommend doing it. Instead, I ended up turning around and cutting a Tupperware lid in half, skipped out of that idea and got two smaller lids and glued them together with one end cut off. And while that dries, we'll install the new power wire for it that should be big enough to deliver all the power that it needs. Here I'm using an old extension lead and cutting the ends off. Then I'll solder one end to our main power distribution board that will be in the control box under the back of the chair, and the other end will go to whatever the power supply is that I make. With the power connected, I can then add our little amp case for the amp to sit in. Then I'll connect up the power wires for both the LEDs and this amp and run them through the little hole. I'll add a wire in to get the audio into the amp and move the speaker cable over to the amp output. Alright, turning everything on. We've got 12 volts for the LEDs and 12 volts for the speaker inside, well specifically the amp. And then we've got 5 volts, 33 amps for the servos and the microcontroller. Let's see how loud it is. Oh, that's at 0. Let's try 3. 1. 1. 1. There we go. Okay. 1. 1. 1. Okay, that still sounds good. 1. 1. 1. 1. 1. 26 seems to be a good volume. 2. 1. 2. This leg servo issue is difficult to deal with. I need to find something else, but I can't I'm not sure what else. Maybe just something shorter. And that search for something shorter led me to another Tupperware lid, marking out the middle where the servo arm will go, as well as drawing an outline as to where I want to cut it out and measuring it a little bit straight. I used my hot soldering iron to cut the plastic out while holding my breath and then locking in that little servo arm with a bit of wire and some holes in it. I'm actually happy it initially broke because now I've got a far better design. There's actually a couple other things that if they broke, I could probably improve them a bit, but I don't have enough time. Halloween is tomorrow, so I need to get this guy all wired up and ready to start shaking. Now, I've got one last little bit of wiring to do. I need to connect that LED strip to the main control board on here. I've decided not to go with a separate WLED controller. And now to power it up. Alright, LED lights are on. And they're not supposed to be. I'm just going to assume that that's because I haven't updated the code on the main control board. Now that I've got the LEDs wired up and pretty much everything on this is working just as it should, it's time to run the animation script, record it, and then I can do some vocal work for it so that it feels a little more alive. I closed down the shed and I started triggering some commands. I noticed some little oddities here and there, like it would cut out because it wasn't quite getting enough power to it, and I also noticed that the hands weren't moving as expected. So after an inspection, I see that the servos in the hands have actually burnt out, prompting me to replace them. Now this was due to a coding error where I didn't make sure that the hands respected their min and max values that I had previously set in calibration. Though luckily for me, I do have a few of these servos laying around, and replacing them was a lot easier than I initially thought, though it did give me a bit of a sore back. Ready for Electroman Animation Script version 5. Electroman Animation Script version 5, take 2, take 3, take 4. I kept optimistic, but I just needed a clean run. Here we are at Electroman Animation Script version 6. Version 6, take 2. Version 7, 1. That's a little scary. He wasn't leaning forward or back or anything. Did I break something? I broke something. Yep. Okay, so all that really happened is this motor has gotten really hot, and I think that's allowed it to slightly melt the hot glue there, releasing it from its stronghold, and then it basically just threw itself out as expected. So I just need to slot this back in place. And now I can add a little extra reinforcement. That should hold it in a little bit better. Now we can finally record the animation sync clip. Getting ready. Powered on. Electroman Animation Script version 7. Electroman Animation Script version 8. And run. 1. Perfect! That's great! That's exactly... Well, that's it. It's done. It's pretty much done. There we go. Done. Chuck it out on the lawn. We're good to go. Only issue, I do still need to make the audio track for this that will play out rather than having it go 1! So, gotta get that sorted, but that's why we just ran that. Now I'm going to watch this clip over and over a couple of times, sort of get in my head where each of the different phases are of this animation so that I can screen the right kind of scream. And I'll have multiple of those screams so that it'll play one after the other rather than always defaulting to the exact same sound effect. And then it's done. Okay, from that last recording of the whole script playout, I have a timeline where I've marked individual sections so that I know what's coming up, what kind of movement is coming up. By the way, here's a look at that timeline, and the full clip is on Patreon, for free, of course. That's probably much louder than what I'll actually be. Okay, there we go. I found it. I found the noise I'm wanting. I feel sorry for the neighbors. Sorry, neighbors. Okay. Please, I'm innocent. I can't see anything. What's going on? I don't know where I am. What's happening? Now, because of the way that it's programmed, I'm actually able to stack up a few clips that are all slightly different and have a different section of that sound bite, allowing each experience to be reasonably unique. Mail time. Just a single package, and I'm very confident I know exactly what this is. It is, in fact, a hot glue gun. Now, this is much larger than I expected. Same with this glue stick, much larger. But it feels like it's got good grip on it there. I just pull it out. Yep, sounds like it's got good suction. And I've got a little temperature thing here so I can turn the temperature up and down. But the most important part about this is a 150 watt hot glue gun. Those little toy ones that I've been playing with, well, the first one was 10 watts, then I went to 20 watts, doubling it, and then I doubled it again and went for a 40 watt, and then I doubled it again and went for an 80 watt, and I'm still breaking it, and I'm still finding that the glue's not going fast enough. So now I've gone to the large size hot glue gun with a much larger heating element in it at 150 watts of power. So here's hoping this is going to last a good while, and honestly, it already feels like it's going to last a lot longer than those other cheap $10 ones. Mail time on a GoPro, because the Osmo is finally given up. Unfortunately, this camera is dead. I mean, the camera itself working perfectly fine, no issues there, but the gimbal, it's taken far too many hits, and it's finally given up.